Hello and welcome to Bargain Bin. It is a video game podcast where myself, Jonny, and my co-host,
Jamie,
discuss video games on the cheaper side, and we give our thoughts, we give our honest opinions, and we hopefully try to find some gems for you, just like we're digging through the bargain bin at our favorite local video game store. This week we played a game on Steam called OddCore. And OddCore is in early access. It is $9.99, and it is developed by a developer called OddCorp and published by Scarecrow Arts and Corgi Digital. Essentially what OddCore is it's kind of a new take on the first-person shooter. It is a rogue-like, and there's a time element to it. So in addition to kind of traveling through some wacky levels that change pretty quickly once you clear them, and using all of these fun kind of colorful weapons, you only have 5 minutes to explode your way through hordes of enemies and make it to the end of the game, ostensibly. Neither Jamie or I did that because it's pretty hard, but we'll get to talking about that later. While it says 5 minutes, you can refresh your time using souls, which you gain when you kill enemies, just like in Dark Souls. And that's kind of the intro there. Jamie, anything to add before we dive into the core of the game?
Well, I did kind of want to say earlier, just very early in the intro, when you said we give our honest reviews, it would be actually pretty funny to come on a podcast and give our purposefully dishonest reviews. Just the entire thing was completely sarcastic. So maybe for an April Fool's podcast, we'll toy around with that. But no, I don't think I have anything else to add on the very brief intro. So I can just kind of, I guess, dive into adding to what this game is about and all that. You know, you mentioned the time aspect and that you can add to it. So that is kind of like another layer on basically how you can quote unquote die in the game. You have that 5 minute timer, but like Jonny mentioned, you can add time to it. But if you let your time run out, then you die and lose your run. And you also have health on top of that. So it basically just adds another layer of something to keep track to. You have to be monitoring your time and your health or else you die. So it kind of lends itself to a very chaotic, fast paced, adrenaline engendering play, where you kind of want to be getting through the levels as quickly as you can so that you're not wasting your time. Instead of like maybe some other FPS games, you might try to be a little bit smarter about where you position yourself, run away from the enemies more rather than just throw yourself into them and kill them. But this game sort of coaxes you into throwing yourself into the hordes so that you're not wasting that time element. And then I think you did maybe mention that it's sort of like a liminal atmosphere, but to give kind of more context on, I guess, the vibes and atmosphere of this game, it is very retro looking. There's lots of vibrant colors. You're essentially in a quote unquote theme park simulation. They call it a theme park and resort in the game, but it's very barren. On the Steam store page, they call it a liminal nightmare, a retro FPS liminal nightmare, and I think that pretty aptly describes the atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely. One of the coolest parts about the game that you introduced me to early on when I was just playing it in bed, kind of floundering around in the world like a fool, was looking around the hub world. And since that's kind of the place you start after you clear the tutorial, you kind of start your run there each time. And I really enjoyed how a lot of the elements of a typical, score chase game and a typical gun game and a typical roguelike were all baked into the hub world diegetically. So like the high scores are shown on like this Jumbotron style thing that's actually in the like abandoned theme park area, and then there's like a little roller coaster that you can ride around and like collect little secret stickers, and then there's like the actual rack of weapons that you can use and unlock, and the different there's also some different like just fun kind of touches, like there's a movie theater and a diner and an arcade And the arcade was really cute because you earn coins in the game that you can bring back to the arcade and play these little like mini arcade games, which just sort of, I think, particularly on a podcast where maybe you haven't played the game and are wondering how carefully made it is at least to me a really good indication of how much care the developer is putting into this game, particularly in the fact that it's still in early access, so you can only imagine how built out it's going to be when it reaches 1.0.
Yeah, the little arcade games that you get your tickets for, I think, was one of my favorite touches, because sorry if I missed you saying this, but the tickets you get from playing the arcade games, you can then use to buy some different weapons and upgrades and costumes. So I feel like, unlike other roguelikes where you earn your money in the runs and then can just buy it, there's like that extra layer of you earn your tokens, but then you have to play the arcade games to get the tickets, and then with that, that's how you can buy some of those extra weapons and stuff, which I thought was just such a joy.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that. I didn't put those pieces together, so I was wondering how to unlock other weapons.
Yeah, and some of the unlocks come from just killing enough enemies or jumping enough times or reaching a certain variant. But yeah, a few of the weapons and gadgets, we can talk about the gadgets in a bit, you can buy at the arcade.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's also indicative of like the player trust that this game has, as far as like it's not really hand holding. It lets players discover as much or as little as they would like. And I think that is such a endearing aspect of game design, to essentially evoke the kind of old adage, you get out of the game what you put in. And I think for OddCore that really rings true. The only other, I guess, like gameplay mode that I saw, there's kind of like the regular hordes where you have to like destroy them and you flip levels. There's also collecting like little sunflower men, which are while like trying to stave off enemies. And then there's like boss battles. Were there any more? I'm jumping the gun a little bit because I didn't talk about the level stuff, so I'll rely on you to bring in the context that's needed. But were there any others that you got farther than me? So I was wondering, as far as like.
Yeah, the only other main level type I would say is a race one, where you're just having to like run away from this scary face type thing.
Oh,
but
interesting.
Then otherwise, I think it's just some different takes on the other one where you're just killing enemies are called purges. Just some other like mini takes on those. There's kind of some like secret fun rooms that they'll throw in.
Oh
which
yeah,
is
like
cool.
the jumping ones.
Yeah, which I never got through one of those. I need to go back and try to do that.
They're
so difficult.
They're really hard.
But yeah, then to expand on kind of what Jonny was alluding to. So when you enter into one of your runs from the hub world, there are essentially different levels which are called variants. And like Jonny mentioned, they can be of different types. There's the purges, where you just have to kill a certain number of enemies. There's sort of a collectathon one, or I would call it capture the flag, because there are these little like the animated flowers running around, and you have to collect enough of them while there are unlimited hordes of enemies coming after you. So you have to be defending yourself, but also collecting these items. There's a race level where you're running around or running away from a scary face, and having to like jump and kind of maneuver through sort of an obstacle course racetrack type thing. And then the boss levels, which I believe come at every 10th variant, so 10, 20, and I forget what the max is. I didn't reach it, but I believe I saw it somewhere. It might be listed somewhere in the game. So those are the different levels that you go through. And then I kind of alluded to this from the arcade. You have your weapons. You can have two weapons, and they each have a primary attack and a secondary attack, and you can switch between them. You can have those equipped only two weapons at a time. And then there are two gadgets that you can have, and those can be things such as like dashing, kind of like a jump smash. There's some other ones where you can like repel enemies or pull them in closer. So there's kind of a variety of there, and that, yeah, just kind of adds on to your movement and can do some additional damage.
Yeah, and so you just try to make your way through the different variants and bosses to make it to the end and maybe break the simulation that you're trapped in. But like I said, neither Jamie and I got there, and I kind of guess This is a segment where I want to talk about the difficulty of this game, the difficulty potentially of just like first-person shooters in general if you're not someone who plays a lot of them, and then also your feelings on rogue-lites and rogue-likes in 2026, just because we're getting a lot of them. I know I played another really big one that is kind of catching a lot of news recently since its release in Mewgenics, just really emphasizing the MEW at the beginning of that. So I want to dig into that, but I'm wondering like what you thought of the difficulty, how it pushed you, and how that felt as a part of this product.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big part of our reviews and thoughts on this game potentially. And I read a Steam review on this that was pretty thought-provoking. I first want to say that I did really enjoy this game. Like, I found it very addictive, especially early on. Like, I wanted to keep jumping back in. I was unlocking weapons. I was getting new gadgets. I was like getting better at the game and learning how to move and fight better. So I found myself wanting to go back in and do more runs, accomplish more runs. And then I don't know however many runs in I was, or hours in I was. I think it was on maybe my third or fourth day of playing this game. That's when I sort of felt like I was hitting a plateau. I had unlocked a good number of the weapons, and some of them do, I don't know if I would say get more powerful, but feel like they can be more powerful. But I think I started hitting a plateau in my skill level where I wasn't getting as far. I think my max variant was 25 or 26, and that was kind of just if I happened to luck out on a good run and be playing well. But one of the big things about this game and that I was reading about in a Steam review is that you're not really getting upgrades from run to run that lend to like certain builds. Like, it's not a game where you're creating a certain build. The only customizations you get between runs are just the 2 weapons you choose and the 2 gadgets you choose. You're not getting like increasingly stronger with each run, which I do think differentiates it from some other games. And then maybe the other topic is just like the items and upgrades you get in the game are pretty generic. I wouldn't say like they ever really felt like anything particularly special to me, and each run, kind of no matter the items I was getting, except for maybe a health boost one, none of the items really felt like they're making such a huge impact on my play. It still felt like each run was very skill dependent.
Right, because the deeper you go, the better the enemies get. So even if you're getting like a damage boost or a like faster fire time on your weapons, the enemies are also moving faster and having more health, etc. So you need to do that to keep pace.
Yeah, and there's a lot more of them. Like, as you increase in variance, the purges, you have to fend off more enemies. Yeah.
So then, like, with that in mind, how did that feel playing a game that was more skill-based? And what was this kind of gets more into the roguelite question of it all. What was your appetite like to go back to the game after you ran up against the plateau?
Yeah, I think it kind of just maybe depends more so on what I'm in the mood for. Like, I did find it fun, and I found myself having it be more skill-based. Like, I wanted to go back in and get better at the game rather than just go back in and like get the items or tools or upgrades to make my character stronger in the game. So I do think like it did a good job catering towards that feeling of wanting to improve my skill, at least for me personally. But I haven't really felt the itch to jump back into it. Well, I guess I did a run last night. So I was going to say, like, since last time I played, which felt like a long time ago, and it was just last night, but I only did like one run last night. But I think that's where I finally sort of hit more of that plateau feeling, where I was like, I really feel like I should be getting further in this game now, but instead, you know, I like played a couple runs where I struggled to get past the second boss. So I didn't really get like any farther than I had some of the other runs. So I think that was a bit demoralizing for me in that aspect, but I might like pick it up again later this week and get a little further and like find that itch again. So I think that aspect of it being more skill based, I think it is done well. I haven't played too many games like that, and it might just come down more to what you're looking for in your game. I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other game that I've played consistently that was so reliant on just getting better at it is Spelunky. And it was interesting to me to kind of juxtapose this and that, because even though this is more of a rogue-lite instead of a rogue-like, because you do get those weapon upgrades and you do get those different abilities run to, like, that last in-between runs. In Spelunky, you don't get that. It is similar for me just because I'm not that good and don't play a lot of first-person shooters. And to me, it's more about, like, how does returning to the game over time make you feel good, or make you feel, question mark. And so, like, for me, returning to Spelunky every once in a while and, like, trying my hand at it feels like, oh, like, I really like the art style. The style of game is up my alley, and I love seeing, like, the design chops just at every turn. And playing first-person shooters just, like, makes my brain feel overheated. And so I think, like, it's more of just, like, a preference thing for me. Like, I don't think I would have fun beating this game, but I did have fun with this game in the limited time that I played it, if that makes sense. Like, I think it's, as far as first-person shooters go, like, a great take on the genre. It's just, I'm not sure I'm the target audience. And so it was interesting to parse that in trying to develop a critical perspective on the game. And also in the context, like I said, of playing another rogue-lite in Mugenics, which I also kind of began to resent the repetitiveness of the farther in I got. And I actually played more of the cat breeding game from Ed McMillan than I did OddCore this week. But I found myself having a somewhat similar feeling of not wanting to go back to either once I had done, like, a critical mass of runs. Because even though I might progress farther, it didn't feel like there was enough pulling me through as far as, like, realizations or valuing my time in either case, even though I saw what the developers were doing and really respected it in both cases, which I thought was interesting. And while I think Mugenics was a lot more up my alley as far as the genre and style, it being like a 2D kind of, like, very classically coded indie game, and OddCore being more first-person shooter, weird vibe. I think, like, it was interesting to me that feeling occurred to me with both, and was just something I was thinking about, particularly since a lot of games these days are roguelikes.
Yeah, and I think to expand on, like, for me, the plateau feeling, like, I think it got to a point where, I mean, you get into some of the higher levels and the enemies are so strong and powerful, and there's so many more of them and they're moving so quickly that I think in the way that it felt like my skill would have to increase to handle all the enemies, I just, like, I didn't know how to proceed with that. Like, I was kind of like, I don't know how I can get more skilled at this game to progress more easily through these levels, except for maybe that I would just have to put in more hours and hours and hours. And I think part of it too is that this is an FPS, so keyboard and mouse is probably the best way to play it, but my dexterity with moving on a keyboard is a lot slower, even though it's a lot easier to aim on the keyboard. So I think there's an aspect too where it's like I just would have to put in the hours to get more dexterous with that medium, and I don't really want to spend the time to do that. And then I did also want to comment too on the fact that I agree with that sentiment of feeling overheated. Like, I think that's a great way to describe the feeling that, like, I also was getting out of OddCore, because it feels very frenetic, and, like, the fact that you're managing your time and the enemies are abundant and fast moving and hurt you very quickly, and the colors are very bright and flashing. It feels very chaotic, and I feel like every time I finish playing this game, I'd have to take a deep breath and just sort of calm myself down, because my adrenaline was going, and like you mentioned, yeah, like, I just felt overheated. So if you're looking for a game like that and that feeling, like, OddCore would definitely do it. I talked to you, I think, a while back about how I realized that some video games I feel like could help prep me for playing sports, because it would sort of get me like focus and get my adrenaline going and get my energy up. And I feel like this game is something that would do it. Like, I could do this game and then go out. Maybe I feel like I could run a marathon. I definitely couldn't, but that's like the feeling that it would give me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to me to like hear these thoughts reflected back at me, because it almost seems like if you're already a huge fan, like there are a lot of people who just play Call of Duty or who just play CSGO or who just play these games that are like very tactical shooters. And I could see this being like such a welcoming and joyful breath of fresh air for folks like that who have the dexterity with the genre and are just looking for a different take on it. And I think they would probably have a wildly different perspective on the difficulty than us. Like, they might think it's too easy for all we know, playing against the computer. But
yeah, and like it was funny because I had watched some other people who like streamed this game or were playing it and realized that they were like jumping around constantly and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'm sure that's just something you would know to do if you were in a game like this. Like, the more you jump, the less likely you're going to get hit. But I wasn't going to come up with that on my own.
It's fascinating to me that there's a like vocabulary to each and every genre that if you don't know, it can be a lot harder to get into even the games that are just like light takes on it. Like, I think OddCore is not like a hardcore shooter by any means, but like it does require the dexterity with the genre to be able to access a lot of it that frankly I just don't have, and don't have that much of an interest in having because of the feelings that those games give me. So it was like, yeah, it was interesting to interact with a piece of art that I respected for its design and leaning into its core tenets the way it does, but not really being able to see what I wanted to see from the game because I'm not good enough at it, you know?
Right.
But even so, like, even if I was pretty good or a little bit better, but not good enough to like beat it in a couple of goes, I do wonder, because I'm way better at like tactics games and like classic indie roguelikes like a Slay the Spire or a Mugenics, and I played a lot more of that game this week, but even after a while I started hitting a wall and realizing that, you know, after kind of the third run in a row where I'd spent like 2+ hours on it and like failed toward the end and like lost my cats and lost all my gear and stuff, it made me realize like it wasn't really bringing me joy to keep going back to it. And since I had already had the realization of like valuing kind of mutations and birth defects, I had already had the realization of like imagining both of our pets as little babies and how cute that was and seeing how unique everyone is. And I had a lot of the takeaways that are being discussed in the critical community, and realized like that's the experience I want to have with this game, and putting it down felt really freeing. And so I wonder if folks who are more have more of a facility with first-person shooters would feel the same way about OddCore or what. It's not an experience I will ever have, but I did appreciate OddCore a lot and want to be clear that like it feels really good. Like the gunplay feels really good. The levels are really like vibrant and unique. And if you're into this kind of thing, I think you'd be really into it. So I want to take my hats off to OddCore, the developer.
Yeah, and I did kind of want to touch on there, you know, we talked about this on one of our walks with our dog Cat, about how games like this, roguelites that don't necessarily have a solid ending or exact ending. I mean, I guess technically they do, like there's usually a max run or like final boss that you can get to, but even after that, like you can go back into the game and keep achieving things, and maybe it can feel more like a failure if you don't get that far. Like games like that feel very different than more linear, like, well, I guess these are linear too, but like narrative story driven games where you're following a story and you're just like getting to the end of a story, and
right, where you're not expected to go back.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, just like the nature of game is so different in how it can make you feel. And I think maybe for you with Mugenics and me with OddCore, we're kind of experiencing that simultaneously, where we were sort of struggling to hit that ending, but also like getting to the point where we felt like we had gotten out of the game, like the experience we wanted to get, and how it can be I don't know, sort of a difficult feeling to grapple with, being like, you almost want to dislike the game if you're not enticed to go back in it to reach that ending that they set for a game like this. But we are reflecting on how, that's not necessarily has to be the case. Like, you can just experience the game for the number of hours that you experience and enjoyed it. And then once you stop enjoying it, like, you're still getting a great experience out of like what you paid for and what you did, even if you're not reaching that quote unquote ending. And, something I had brought up was, I feel like it helps my brain to sort of draw a simile between games and meals, where you'd like, pay $15-20 for a meal, eat it in the night, and like enjoy it. And like, you can buy a game for a similar price and enjoy it for like several hours. And like, you don't have to finish your meal. You don't have to finish your game to like still feel like it was worth your while and like brought you joy to whatever extent that it filled your tummy or brain.
And you can always have leftovers later. That's another thing.
That's so true.
I was gonna say, as far as like, it would be fun to come back to Mugenics on like a plane ride, or a time when I, have time to kill and don't really feel like playing anything else. And it feels more easy to pick away at something like that when I already have a facility with the genre, right? Where with OddCore, I'm sure folks who, mainline COD or CSGO would love to have this as like a plane game and be like, oh, I can come back to it and try a run and try to get really far. And then if not, I can, put it away for another 6 months. Like, I think there's a place for games like that, but I think it's also a good reason to remember that, like, just like in life, we feel compelled to do a lot of things and like complete things and like have achievements that you don't actually have to do. It's like expectations we're putting on ourselves or feel like they're coming from society or outside sources. And I feel like setting boundaries in games is just as important as setting boundaries in life, where it's like, once you have reached that meter, like, pushing past it does feel really bad a lot of the time and feels like exhausting instead of joyful. And I think that's something that I'm learning the more I grow and the more my relationships with games change. And I think it's beautiful that person to person that can change so very much. Like, I think someone who buys one game a year would love to find a game that they could just endlessly replay and until the next one they get. And for us, playing a bunch of different games and finding joy and discovering these titles that make us feel different ways, we obviously feel differently since we're playing more games and games that are usually smaller experiences. So I just love that there's so much depth and breadth to games that it can fill all those niches and more.
Yeah. Dang. So true, bestie. That's like all I was thinking when you were talking, especially on the completing things side. I mean, yeah, we do put so much pressure on ourselves in our day-to-day to finish things and complete things and achieve things. And if we don't, we feel bad and guilty about that. And that leaks into how we interact with games at times, feeling like we have to accomplish a game we're not really enjoying or hit all the achievements when we don't really want to. So yeah, that's certainly another way that games can teach us life lessons and be a way to practice things that we're wanting to practice in our own lives.
So we've talked about the gunplay, we've talked about the hub world, we've talked about the levels. Is there, like, how's the sound design for you? I didn't really notice it, so I guess that's probably all good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, kind of now that we're playing more and more games, this game kind of has some of the things you might find in those as well, where they're like little secret things that you can discover, secret rooms, secret trinkets. One of those is, I feel like, I don't know if this is just becoming more popular today or like just in the retro games that we're playing, where this game does have like cassette tapes that you can find. So there are different like songs that you can unlock throughout the game and cycle through them, but as you're going through the battles, I feel like they blend pretty well into the background, which means that they fit the vibe pretty well, but I don't think necessarily stand out in any particular way. And then, yeah, lots of sound effects with the weapons, the enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the art direction of the game is really solid, and I have kind of nothing but either good things or things to say about it, just how I'm bad at it.
Right.
So I feel like kind of exhausted a lot of my critical thoughts on it. What about you?
Yeah. I think I'm ready to jump into endorsements. I would say like the art and sound design and everything is all very cohesive.
All right. Thanks, OddCore. Let's get on to some endorsements. Jam, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure thing. I would endorse this game. I think, we've talked about all the things to talk about and like how it fits within the genre and like what you'd probably want to look for if you're playing this game. I enjoyed this game. I had a really good experience out of the hours I put into it, especially for its price. Again, it is in early access. I think it's pretty good for what it is now, but if you wanted to wait for its full release just to let the developer need out like any changes, or I didn't really experience any bugs, but for them to just maybe even out gameplay or remove and add features, I could definitely see the value in that. But even in early access right now, I give it my endorsement.
Yeah, I was thinking I would endorse it up until like kind of this moment, but something in my heart is just telling me like, if this is Jonny's endorsement, I can't give it. It's mainly just like I'm fascinated by the game. I think it's a great example of a first-person shooter, but I just don't really like them.
Yeah, and I think that's like, I feel like you not endorsing it is very valuable because I think that shows that the game doesn't do anything so wildly special in the genre that it would make someone like you who doesn't really like the genre like want to endorse it or play it.
Yeah, I mean, it also just like, for me to endorse a game, I think it would have to be a game that a lot of people who are into first-person shooters didn't like, because it would have to be like stretching out a hand to like, hey, noob,
right?
Like, come on in and enjoy this.
Yeah.
And this game doesn't do that, and I think for a lot of people, that's what makes it great.
Yeah.
And for me, it just felt a little too inaccessible, in spite of how beautiful and interesting the design was, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
And
I think the other thing I would mention that I did touch on early in the conversation is that I think, too, if you're looking for a game where you are going for more of a build and that some of that build or upgrades were what were progressing you through further levels, we talked about this a lot. This game probably isn't that. But yeah, if you're looking for a game where it's not going to hold your hand on just what you discover makes you stronger, but instead you have to actually kind of get used to the game and get better at it, then this game will likely be that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if any of y'all play this and give us a shout if you do. We're on my YouTube channel, Indie Game Garden, and we also have an email that you can email indiegamegarden@gmail.com. So let us know your thoughts. That's indiegamegarden@gmail.com. I just wanted to do a spelling check. Jamie, let's move on to our binnable moments for this week, and I kind of envision this being a slightly longer segment just because I feel like you and I have both been on our grind as far as like playing a lot of different titles, and I wanted to discuss all the games we've played, but also we did watch a movie this week, we did eat a lot of good food. There's a lot to talk about, so do you want me to begin?
I'll begin.
Okay, I love you taking initiative.
Because usually I don't have my binnable moments right away and I have to think about it. So,
yeah.
And I have some of them right now. So
That's great.
I'm eager to jump in.
Grab the reins and go.
I'll start with some of the other games that I've been playing and played. So one of the other games I played this week alongside OddCore was Creature Kitchen, which was a newly released game. That is kind of like a cozy, spooky game where you're cooking meals for little critters in this like cabin in the woods that you're house sitting for. And it was really short. It was like 2.5 hours for me to finish it, but it was just such a good palate cleanser game. Very cozy, but it's got this spoopy vibe. So I was relating it to like Halloween time. It's in the fall like in the fall, the air is crisp. You're putting out your Halloween decorations. You're lighting a fire in the fireplace, drinking some hot tea or hot cocoa. It kind of gives you that vibes. And I just really enjoyed that game, especially because it was so different from OddCore. So I would like play some OddCore, get really riled up, and then kind of calm down with some Creature Kitchen. And then I've also finally been jumping back into Clair Obscur. I think I'm going to dedicate my Tuesday streams to finishing out that game and then hopefully finishing out Baldur's Gate 3 after that. That's been really fun. And then, yeah, we ate a lot of good food this weekend. Your sister was in town. It was so fun to hang out with her, show her around the city. We ate such delicious food. I love delicious food. It made me so happy. And yeah, it was just a good weekend.
Hell yeah. And you've been doing all that streaming on your Twitch channel, Little Red Jam, and you post videos on YouTube too by the same name. So I love them. You should definitely check them out, folks. For me, I have been trying to line up a lot of interviews for my other podcast that I just started called Indie Game Garden. And I also have been doing some YouTube stuff under that same name. But some of the games I've played in preparation for Indie Game Garden are Horrorvale, which is kind of a Mother 3 style JRPG, which I have loved. Sweep Miner, which is like a Minesweeper collection of games that are inspired by Minesweeper. Someone on Steam called it the UFO 50 of Minesweeper, which was like Minesweeper was the original like game included on Windows software, and I really enjoyed like poking around that. And then Fox Haunt, which is a really interesting like choice-based kind of simplified turn-based combat game with cute little characters. And yeah, I'm just having a blast. I also, as I said, played the cat breeding game that everyone's playing, and also dove back into Jeanne d'Arc today, which was wonderful and really refreshing, having played a lot of these newer games, realizing that, you know, the 2007 to 2011 era still got it, and really I think still has the number of a lot of modern games, so it's always fun to go back and do some retro gaming, which Jamie and I will be doing a lot more of because I bought a modded PS2.
Woo woo! I'm so
be,
excited for this.
It's going to be really fun. It's got like 1 terabyte of storage with all the PS1, PS2 games on it, and yeah, I'm thrilled to see it come in a package and see what we do when we open it up.
I'm so excited.
I think that's it for me, Jamie. You got anything else to say this week? Oh, the movie we watched when my sister was here was really good. It's called The Chungking Express, by a famous auteur, director from Hong Kong, and I just thought it was really funny. And
it was really funny.
A super
surprisingly funny.
Yeah, like a super interesting movie that I feel like could only have been made in like the later 90s when it was made. So I love movies like that, and I love games like that, as I was talking about, that are a little older and can provide a perspective that feels refreshing here in our modern mess.
Yeah. And then we watched Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh yeah, I loved that.
Neither of us had seen that before.
Yeah, I like had snippets of it in my head from when I was really little, but I think I was a little too scared of it. And I had never watched it all the way through, and it was such a joy.
I cannot imagine watching that as a little kid. Like, you would have nightmares from that.
I think I did. And that's probably why I only discovered I liked horror very recently as a 27-year-old man. Well, if you're still here listening through to the end, I thought I would just give a quick shout out to you. Thank you. But also let you know that, like, I think Jamie and I are both pretty interested in having the show like grow a little bit and have more folks invested in it, because that gives us joy and allows us to expand our efforts in a number of ways. And so we're not doing any kind of like pay thing or Patreon at the moment. I think the best way to support the show, if you want, is to just tell one friend that likes video games, or maybe has a passing interest in them, or just a passing interest in hearing two people chat. I listen to a lot of video game podcasts just because they keep me company throughout the day, and it brings me joy, and I hope we can be that for at least 1 or 2 people. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. Love y'all. Bye.